what they would not do is go and cover the prayer meetings and the vigils and the peaceful protests. It was really strange to see people in this particular column that I had going begin to, every time they would hear media focusing on rioting, looting, burning, etc., their contrasting information would be, but look at all this they're not covering. And I think that there's a bunch of truth to that, because if it bleeds, it leads. And if it burns, they want it on, full screens, obviously. But that sort of contrast, they were saying, not that those things were not true and that they weren't happening, but that was only a small portion of people that were involved, and the media wasn't covering all the sincere and honest protesters. I think they had a point there.
Well, that's a pretty typical approach for the media. In fact, I remember back when Columbine happened out here, I lived on the west side of town. The church I attended was in Littleton. I worked in Littleton. I was in Littleton all the time. And that was my first exposure to mass media. And, this horrible tragedy took place. And I will just never forget watching it unfold on live television. My school classes had been canceled for the day. It was just crazy, and everybody was just so devastated by what was happening. And then we turned the news on a couple days later, because it was a 24/7 news cycle, and the local media was covering the individual stories of the students who were affected, who were killed, the families, the churches, the communities, the school. The national media was only focusing on all of the gun rights and the gun control and how we had to get rid of guns and the protests and the ugliness and the hate. And kind of forgot where I was going with that. But anyway, I think that's just normal. And when especially if you have something like that happens in your own area, it is a fantastic opportunity to show people how the media cannot be trusted, going back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago. Plant those seeds of doubt, show how the media is biased, because I cannot tell you how many people from all walks of life in Colorado, particularly Littleton, would not watch the national news. They would only watch the local news because they were so offended. And, watching Katie Couric get on the news and her eyes were just lit up with excitement about how she was covering the worst school tragedy in American history. It's sick. And that's exactly what they're doing in Ferguson. Who puts themselves between police and rioters so that they can get the story? Really? That's pretty messed up.
Right, but another thing is that they use the communities, the people who are commenting on this list, who are tweeting on Fishy's list, are using those good examples of the media being unfair, of the media going down roads that not going to these vigils, not going to the peaceful protests, as sort of an example that says that the entire thing is fake, that the entire thing is, completely. The Ferguson situation is one where the facts are not being presented. The real facts aren't there. We know the real facts on this list. That's it. It's just us. It's just us in the community that know the facts of this, and everything else, not so much. It's just lies and fabrication from the news media, from CNN, and from all the.
Are they saying that the
Sorry,
whole?
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Are they saying that the whole story is not true, or are they just saying that the media is being biased?
They're saying that the media is being biased, but they're also saying that bias is one that is helping the case that got Officer Wilson off. That this was basically, yes, that's what they're saying, is that this is that the news isn't covering the actual facts of the case, that they're not doing a good job of bringing out the fact that Darren Wilson is not was not arrested, or is not didn't go to trial over this, is somehow an indictment of the media not doing their jobs.
Okay. Yeah, that's a little
Indicted.
bit.
I'm sorry that he was not indicted. Sorry, what was that?
Sorry about that. No, I was just saying what you just described is a little bit different than what we were seeing out here back during Columbine.
And I think what we're seeing is that there's a natural skepticism that many people have always had about the media, because we read the stories in our hometown and we see, oh, if this is a story about something that just happened up the street, look at how many facts he got wrong in that story, and we can then understand, oh my God, he probably gets that many facts wrong in stories about stuff that I don't know, so I should probably not trust those stories either. So I won't trust the news. But back to like what JD said, the smartest thing that progressives have ever done is merge the news with education so that people are getting the news, but they aren't identifying it as the news. They're not providing it with the skepticism that they provide at the news. They're just taking, if LeBron says it, it must be true. If Jon Stewart says it, it must be true, because that's not news. He's just saying the truth and the conventional wisdom. So when the non-bloggers and the non-old media people say they're liberal things, well, that's just the truth. And that's where we've lost our way on competing, because we are isolating ourselves as, conservative news sites rather than just being entertainers, just having entertainers who speak conservative message kind of thing. And I think that's some of what we're seeing, is that the skepticism that people are maybe learning to or relearning to provide to the media, we're not having a good effect at helping them apply that skepticism to the liberal news that they're hearing from their entertainers.
Well, and something I've been doing quite a bit with people that I know, especially those who are not conservative, they might be middle of the road or they might be a little bit more liberal, but I've been challenging them to go find a news source that they're sure they're going to disagree with and read it. And then I say, hey, why not? I think it's always good, because if you don't feel like you can trust the media, don't you think you should get a wide variety of opinions and piece it together to see what you think the truth is? And then I'll talk about how I'll go out and read Huffington Post articles, because with the Huffington Post, but I think it's important to see what people with other opinions are saying and thinking. And they're always left a little speechless. They're not quite sure what to say.
Well, and a good example of that is the situation with Gamergate and what Breitbart has done. Milo Yiannopoulos has been really big in that situation with Gamergate. I won't go into what exactly that whole situation is about, but suffice it to say, there are a lot of people who are broadening their reading lists because of the situation with Gamergate, and going to sites like Breitbart and going to other places that they might not have necessarily gone to because there's this block. So it's a good thing that we are broadening the horizons for a lot of people, and a lot of these stories can do that.
Can we just ask, to kind of test how much people have been, how do I put this? I'm trying to convince people that they have been persuaded by a dishonest media. Okay? And what if I ask them things like this? Does it trouble you that everything the Republicans predicted about Obamacare has come true? I mean, seriously, all of it. Every last aspect of their predictions have come true. Does that trouble you? Okay? Does global warming, does it trouble you that the global warming skeptics were mocked a decade ago, and now virtually every prediction of the global warming advocates has not come true?
The thing is, though, Andy, and it's just that going back to that deluge of media, if you're talking about somebody who is entrenched, you're lying. This is going back to that selective truth. What you're saying, what you're talking about, oh, that's not true. That's not reality. That's not the real stuff. That's not the actual news. That's propaganda. That's stuff that's being pushed out by right-wing sources for their own gain.
Oh, I know, but that's why I put it in that way. Does it trouble you? Because I want them to disagree, because now they've done something they never want to do. They've engaged. Okay, and at that point I look at them and say, oh, okay, so you think that's all from right-wing media, yada, yada. Great, let's go fact for fact then. Let's toss out the media and go fact for fact on these things. Now they're dead.
Except for the thing, the problem goes back to, if you can't agree on what the facts are, and that's the crux of this and specifically about the Michael Brown situation. The facts that we have seen come out of the grand jury trial, and the facts, quote unquote, that are being basically thrown out as facts, that hands up, don't shoot, that sort of stuff. Those are incomplete. They're not the same thing. They are not the same facts. They're completely different sets of situations. Only one of them has been vetted through grand jury trial, and so we can say that our facts are the real facts and the better facts, but they're also going to say that our facts are the real facts and the better facts.
And doesn't it go back to that whole thing about lying and the cost of lying? You can build an entire narrative if it fits the way that you want to say something, and you have your own facts, whether it's the hockey stick graph of the whole business with the global warming, or whether it's Michael Brown, whatever it is, there's not a downside to doing it, because what do you still see in places like Ferguson where things like this have happened? You still see people committed to a narrative regardless of some legal process that happened. And what the conversation turns to is the legal process is obviously flawed because it didn't give me the outcome I wanted. And that is where you pivot, and it becomes the facts are the facts only if they agree with my worldview.
And people are so invested in their story that you're never going to bring them off of it. Just like you're never going to bring people off of their love for Obama, because there's a certain segment of the population that is so invested in him. Their entire lives are invested in his success. And they will make sure that happens, and they will accept any version of what they can consider a fact in order to make it true. They start and end with the narrative. Yeah, and the facts change.
But Obama's teetering.
True. Thank God.
Well, look, he has become an anchor for his party, and the drubbing is going to get worse. The article that I'm working on right now, I know I keep saying this, sorry, it'll probably be coming out tomorrow. I know, but it's not quite done. It's going to go into the desperation that the Democrats face. They must score big in 2016.
But here's the thing, too. You're talking about Obama's numbers. That's an isolated thing from an ongoing narrative investment that people have. And where Obama intersects with stories and narratives, you find that is not necessarily the case, that he's finding the peel-off on an issue. Now, overall, performance-wise, yeah, I think people are suffering from the 6-year term sort of thing. He's not novel anymore. There is a segment of the population that is invested deeply in his successful narrative being forwarded. But for the most part, everything you're going to see going forward, in my opinion, is going to be the separation, sort of like the rocket separating from the capsule, boosting the narrative up to a certain point, and then they have to let him go, because if they're wedded and stuck together, the whole thing explodes in the end. So you'll find stories that are being advanced that have very little to do with the president or federal policy or things like that, and it will become more of a focus on what a state might be doing wrong, or what a county might be doing wrong, or what the legal process might be doing wrong. I think that's a skillful pivot that the left is attempting to make in order to get issues separated from the president's performance.
Because progressivism has to be saved.
Well, and yeah, and even more directly, Hillary Clinton has to be saved. They're